These guys survived the David Kahn era of Timberwolves basketball and live to tell about it. It's Flagrant Howls.
Just a warning for Kyle and the audience. I am prepared for this to be a very distracted edition of Flagrant Howls here because we are recording this with 54 minutes until the NFL's legal tampering period. Today is Kirk Cousins' Super Bowl, as you all know. He wakes up in the middle of March, looks at himself in the mirror and says, it's time to be a champion today before negotiating another ironclad guaranteed contract. So if something comes across the timeline, we might just report it live, quote unquote, here on Flagrant Howls, Kyle.
I literally thought you woke me up early. We're doing this on a Monday. It's 8 o'clock on the West Coast. I thought you woke me up to talk about the Vikings and Kirk Cousins because I had a lot of takes. So I guess we'll talk about
before the show's over, we will give you, I'm going to make a note here. We're going to give you like one or two piping hot Wolves take. We'll give you like an open forum here, okay?
All right.
Or a Vikes takes. What did I say? Wolves takes? We'll give you Vikes takes. Yeah.
You're distracted. I get it. I appreciate it. Our schedule's going to be a little off this week. You're going to do some real business stuff, right, starting tomorrow. So we'll do this episode, and then I think Jim and I might hold it down ourselves with Ross on Thursday. And then I'm on vacation for a week. So the content never stops, especially in the NFL. I know you had a cool Twins show today with a little announcement, so I hope people check that out as the Twins ramp up. And then the Timberwolves that are either crashing down to earth or maybe the ire of Adam Silver in the NBA.
What do you make of what's happening right now? Because so as we wake up here on this Monday, the Wolves lose last night to the Lakers. The Lakers wind up once again shooting a lot more free throws than their opponent, Anthony Davis. So it wound up being 29 free throw attempts for the Lakers, including 13 for Anthony Davis, matching the 13 by the Timberwolves. Anthony Davis became the first player in like 50 years to score 25 or more points, 25 or more rebounds, 5 or more assists, and 5 or more steals. He had 27, 25, 5 assists, 7 steals, 3 blocks in this game. By the way, the Wolves have nobody to stand in front of him when Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns are out. So they were probably supposed to lose the game just based on all the injuries. But they've now dropped to third in the Western Conference, so they're a game and a half behind the Thunder. They're a half game behind the Nuggets. They're 2 games above the Clippers and 4.5 games above the Pelicans. They're fighting off injuries. They're fighting off officials. And they're fighting off all these other teams in the Western Conference. So where are you sort of at? What's your panic meter look like right now, Kyle?
My panic meter is a little different than most, simply because I'm more panicked about things like the Jaden McDaniels, like 0 for 5 from 3. Like they're not going to win that game last night against the Lakers. Too much size, just too much. The Lakers starting to get a little healthier and stuff. They're rolling. The Wolves are kind of in just try to survive mode, don't drown. Since the Karl-Anthony Towns news, they're on this 6-game road trip. But then like Mike Conley last night was like a minus 25. Yeah. He's had like one good game, I think, since the break. You hope he's not getting run down. And then just the lack of bodies, right? Like this is not the time that you want to, in this stretch run, be down, your best 3-point shooter and your best rim protector and maybe your best, kind of jack of all trades off the bench and Kyle Anderson. So I think they're just going to have to pivot. I mean, as soon as Karl went down last Thursday, which we did a pod, and then obviously that night, whatever, let's just say it, the best win of the season with Anthony Edwards just exploding against the Pacers and a block that, I mean, I was going to text him, but let's just do 30 minutes emergency pod just on the block because that was the coolest thing I've seen in years. But then, next night, fall in Cleveland to some questionable officiating. They followed against the Lakers. I think they just got to try to go 3-3 on this road trip and just try to grind. It sucks. It is what it is. Yeah. I don't want to see them start running guys 42 minutes a game trying to pick up extra wins because
that's what they did last night.
I know. But again, they didn't have Kyle or Rudy. I wonder if they gave those guys a rest, kind of reloading up and just saying, hey, we'll play all our young guys. I mean, it was Nikhil, it was Jaden, it was Nas, and they did kind of rest Mike a little bit and play a lot of Jordan McLaughlin.
Non-garbage time, 10 minutes of non-garbage time, Luka Garza in that game.
And he looked serviceable. He also looked at times like his lack of maybe athleticism or just, it's hard to be like, hey, Luka, you're on a two-way and you never play, and now you have to go guard AD. So he held his own. His activity and energy is kind of just all you want from a bench player. So
yeah,
undermanned. I had no expectations. They were 4-point underdogs for a reason. Probably should have been 8. But now they have this Clippers game coming up on Tuesday where you're like, that's one of the teams kind of fighting for one of those top 4 seeds. And then they do get 3 days off. I think they're hanging out in LA. And then they have 2 games against the Jazz team that has pretty much folded, but they get spicy too. So try to go 3-3 on this road trip. Then you got to go back home and play Denver on the second night of a back-to-back. It's a grind. And early in the season, their schedule is really, I would say, easy. They did have the best road record in the league. So it's not like they took care of business for the most part, but they have so many back-to-backs, and this is just a really brutal stretch. And to do it without Karl, to do it without Rudy is nasty, but just got to hang on. For what it's worth, Phil, because I think people are starting to say this, I don't think they're going to fall to the top 4. And to me, as long as you stay in the top 4, I mean, that's, I think, what you and I said in December is like that would be the goal, is just get home court in the first round and then from there figure it all out. But even if Karl's out for the rest of the regular season, I think falling to 5th would be very unlikely, but also a disaster, like a flat-out disaster if they can at least get this thing across the finish line with the top 4 seed.
Well, the thing is, they're still fighting in these games that they're losing.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. I think I'd be more worried if all of a sudden they're just getting blown out by 15, 20 points. Dude, their losses, so they've had back-to-back losses now twice in the last 12 days. But the losses are 4 points in overtime to the Kings, 1 point at the end of the game to the Clippers, overtime against Cleveland on the road, and then a game against the Lakers where you were leading in the fourth quarter, right? And then the game just gets away because...
First time they've lost by double digits since January 3rd in that Lakers game, right? Because they lost to the Cavs by, I believe, 9. So they haven't lost by double digits in 10 weeks.
Yeah, the Pelicans at home on January 3rd. Yeah. 117-106.
That was the last time. So, again, Lakers are good. They're kind of cooking right now. They are still, I think, 9th in the West. That could be, we could simulate 5 weeks out from now and have the 7 through 10 seeds be like Luka, Kyrie, and the Mavs, the Phoenix Suns, the Lakers, and the Warriors all playing for the plan. Like, that would be, you thought that in-season tournament was fun. Like, that could be really, really must-watch TV. But, yeah, the Wolves, after they finish up the Clippers and then 2 against the Jazz and then come home for this second night of a back-to-back, which they need to just figure out, like the scheduling. It can't be that hard to eliminate more of those things. All their home games after that Nuggets game next Tuesday, Cavs, Golden State, Detroit, Chicago, Houston, Toronto, Washington, Atlanta, Phoenix. They'll be favorites in all those games, and they should win all those games. So it does get a little easier, but they have this week coming up where they just got to kind of batten down the hatches and try not to sink.
Let's do some math here, okay? Let's just do, because sometimes we did this last week on, I think, the Tuesday episode, where it's therapeutic sometimes to start to map out the worst case scenario. You know what? I'm not a big Bobby Knight fan in my life, but Bobby Knight wrote a great book called The Power of Negative Thinking. And it's not about just being an asshole all the time, which I think that's what Bobby Knight is mostly remembered for, and being a great college basketball coach. It's about preparing for bad things to happen so that you're not thrown off completely, right? Like when you're driving, my dad used to teach me this. When you're driving, always assume that every other driver is an idiot programmed to run you off the road. So if you if you assume that, you can't be shocked when someone cuts you off, right? Because I was the power of negative thinking. I was expecting that guy to cut me off. So let's expect the Wolves have 17 games left, Kyle, if my math is right. So they played, 65 games, 82, so they have 17 games left. No Karl-Anthony Towns. Gobert is going to maybe miss more games. He's banged up. The Conley thing is, we should almost put that aside because that's a conversation. There might just be an age cliff happening, a Chris Paul situation here where, you play like 100 games, including playoffs, and at some point it's going to catch up to you if you're 37, 38 years old. But, 17 games, and they're not operating anywhere near 100%, and they've got opponents, like you said, Clippers the next night out. They've got Denver, Cleveland, Golden State 3 in a row in their next homestand. They've got Denver a couple more times. Let's say they go 9-8. I'll start there. If they went 9-8 in their final 17 games, which obviously is not the pace they've been playing at that's kept them number one in the West for most of the year. Before we even do the rest of the math, how would you feel about 9-8 in these 17 games?
9-8 is, I honestly would say, aggressive, and the goal. I
get you
know,
to 53 wins.
I know that people think, oh, they're making excuses already and stuff. No. This team was going, what's the speed limit in North Dakota? 75. They were going 87 on cruise control from Minot to Fargo, and it was easy for the first 50-some games of this season. And whether there's an accident now or construction, it's a completely different context with the guys they have down. You make a good point about Rudy. I don't know if it was just a one-off. I would imagine he usually plays through a lot of stuff, so I'm expecting him to play against the Clippers, but we'll find out later today with the injury report. They just have to try to go 500. And again, 9-8 brings them, Phil, to 53-29. I think that might be the second best record in 35 years, but 9-8, to your point, would then get what in the West? Because the Pelicans, to catch them, that's what you're trying to get. Okay, so what's the math part?
So the Pelicans have 18 games left. Now, this is where I need your tiebreaker help because they've played 4 games against each other. They've split 2-2. So that's the first tiebreaker. It's a split. But in the 18 games left, to match the Wolves at 53-29, I believe the Pelicans would have to go 14-4 in those final games. Because, right now, no, I take that back. They'd have to go, what are they now, 39-25?
Yep.
Yeah. They'd have to go 14-4. They'd have to go 14-4 to get to 53-29, and then the tiebreaker gods can sort of. So do you think the Wolves can go 9-8? And if they do you think the Pelicans can go 14-4 and essentially play their hottest basketball? They've won 4 in a row, and Zion had an amazing block last night. So I get it. When they're fully healthy, that's a scary team. But that's what would have to happen for you to get knocked out of home court in the first round.
The Pelicans are, I think this is pretty clear now. The Pelicans are the most unique team in the league. When they're hot, they are like a contender. People really love their depth and their athleticism. And when Zion's good, he's good. But they also can just lose back-to-back games to the Nets and the Blazers. I mean, they're so volatile. So just kind of looking at their schedule, they have a bunch of back-to-backs coming up. They have a 4 or 5 game road trip. They play the Suns twice, the Lakers, OKC, Milwaukee. They just have too many tough games on their schedule to only lose 4 of their next 18. So, I mean, again, it's going to get close. It's nasty. This is not fun. It's all kind of breaking at the same point. The Mike Conley thing that we're putting a pin in, pretty sure they thought Monte Morris could just start to eat a lot of those minutes. Now he's hurt. There's just all these dominoes coming at the same time. And at some point, you really do have to say the most important thing is, can we have all of our bodies back by, I think it's April 20th. There's kind of a weird week there between the end of the regular season on April 14th and the play-in games, which the Wolves will, yes, Dad, they will absolutely avoid that. Okay, they will not crater into the play-in.
Let's do the math on that. Should we do the math on that right now?
If you want to, because some people are nervous, and I can see why.
So, okay, this is only just for a thought experiment.
They are 7 games up on the 7-seed Kings right now, just FYI.
There's a much better chance that they get the 1 seed still than tumble down into the play.
There's a much better chance they sign Kirk Cousins than that they fall into the
They might need
tournament.
him, dude. They might need him. So, okay, let's say the Kings, we'll use the King, because right now, it's funny, right now, actually, the Suns are the 6th seed, and if the playoffs started today, the 3 seed Wolves would host the Phoenix Suns into Game 1.
And that's all. We had so much fun talking about that. Man. I would love that matchup. I know people think I'm crazy. I just give me ISO heavy teams that the Wolves can just kind of lock down, or as you say, clamp. But playoff matchups are now out the window. It's all about finishing this race, this regular season, and also just being at full strength. And that includes, I guess, Karl too. I'm not concerned about projecting who they play, but if they did play the Suns, I'd be pretty confident.
Yeah. I mean, I still get a little worried about some of the greatness on that team, but I feel like the Wolves match up pretty uniquely well against. I don't think anyone matches up perfectly against Suns or any of these sort of isolation teams with Hall of Famers like the Clippers, because they just have guys that can hit shots with hands and faces. But over a 7-game series, Clippers or Suns, the amount of players the Wolves can run at, the Kawhis and the Paul Georges and the Kevin Durants, not to shut them down because they're still going to get their 25 or 30 points, but to make it less efficient. You can run Jaden out. You can run Kyle out. You can run, if they're healthy, you can run different bodies at them. So on the Kings, let's do some math. 36 and 27. So they're at, what's that, 63 games. So they have 19 games left. All right. Let's say the Wolves go 7 and 10.
That would bring
what's like a worst case scenario in these 17 games? 7 and 10?
I was gonna say, well, worst case scenario, I think is 5 and 12
for the Wolves. Really?
Well, I mean, just worst case. Worst, like the.
So negative, dude.
No, it's not. It's you said worst case. I just think that they're gonna have after this week, and this week is gonna get really tough, and people are gonna start to doubt them again, and I think that's totally fair. But this is their hell week, and if they can survive this and get home and have all the people, have legs and arms still working, whatever happens to the Nuggets happens. The Nuggets are on a heater right now. But then you can grind out wins at home against bad teams. Like the Rockets might have lost their starting center for the year. So I don't think 5 and 12 is going to happen. But I think 7 and 10.
11.
6 and 11. That's
we'll
fine.
ahead.
I know where you're getting with this. Yeah, that's 50 wins, by the way. That would be 50 and 31. 32.
50 and 32. Okay. So 50 and 32, that means, and this is dangerous, we're doing live math right now.
This is not a tough Monday.
So the Kings would then have to go, they would only get 5 losses in their last 19 games. They would have to go 14 and 5. If the Wolves go 6 and 11, the Kings would have to go 14 and 5 to tie. And then I guess it's possible they'd have to go better than that because haven't the Wolves won the season series?
And most of these teams, by the way, if you're listening and be like, well, they could do that. It's very Minnesota to fall on your face and have these teams catch you. A lot of these teams still play each other like multiple times. So like there's this cannibalization of, the Pelicans and the Kings or the Suns and the Lakers. These teams are all going to have to play each other and figure it out. So, and also the Kings just, if you watch enough Kings games,
and the Kings won the season series, by the way, right? They only played 3.
But if you watch consecutive Kings games, the Sacramento Kings can't just reel off 14 of their next 19. Like they are also kind of an issue too. So it's going to get dicey. It's going to get close. But I think what your math just showed you is that it would take pretty much the ultimate best case scenario for any team 7 through 10 and the absolute worst case scenario for Minnesota for it to even get close, right? Like it would be like within a half game or something. Yeah. So top 4 seeds are definitely much in play. OKC this morning is 45 and 19. The Nuggets are a game back. The Wolves are 1.5. The Clippers are 3.5. But they have, like I said, 4.5 games up on the Pelicans and 6.5 games up on the Suns. They just got to grind out wins. And maybe that's what happened last night. Like maybe they did rest Kyle and Rudy. Not a lot of context around those injuries. Maybe they're kind of loading up to be like, hey, we are battling the Clippers right now for seeding. Let's be at full strength or as close to full strength on Tuesday against them. Then let's take some days off and then let's really try to hammer. They win those 2 Jazz games. I mean, the worst case scenario to me is kind of already avoided because they're not going to then just lose 13 of their last 16 or whatever.
You've got 2 games against the Jazz left on your schedule, and they've been competitive. Like the Rockets have been. These aren't doormat teams completely. These are teams that are winning games. But you've got a game against the Pistons, a game against the Wizards. The Bulls are on your schedule. The Hawks and those are like playing teams in the East. But I don't know. This was just a thought experiment to let's confront the doom and gloom, the worst case scenario head on, and see how bad it really is. To me, the more interesting discussion here is just the landscape of the Western Conference. You just played a Lakers team that's flipping the switch as much as they can late in the year. Anthony Davis is a problem. LeBron James, almost 40 years old, is still just putting up, stretching out, putting up 29, 8, and 9 because he can. And I think right now today, the Lakers and the Warriors would play each other in the 9-10 game. I think that's going to change. I think one of those teams is going to rise up, or maybe both, above that game. So there's a pretty good chance that Lakers and Warriors could swallow up Kings and Mavericks in the play-in. And now your Western Conference bracket goes Thunder, Nuggets, Wolves, Clippers, Pelicans, Suns, Lakers, Warriors. Which, if you compare that to like the Eastern Conference where the Bulls and the Hawks are in the mix in the play-in right now, a
That game will
Sixers
be on
team
WGN, yeah. Won't even put on NBA TV.
A Sixers team without Joel Embiid and a big question mark as to when he's going to come back. I mean, there's some much easier outs in the Eastern Conference right now, but the West could literally be like the two worst seeds in the playoff bracket could be two of the greatest players of all time leading their teams in on hot streaks. And then you've got this Thunder team that leads the entire West in point differential at the top. So, when people talk about the Wolves slipping up in the first round, I would argue like, well, dude, the Thunder could slip up in the first round. The Nuggets could slip up in the first round. This is a crazy year in the Western Conference when you've got teams like the Lakers and the Warriors getting right at the right time with some of the greatest players of all time. So it doesn't really matter what the seed is for the Wolves. Like the first round matchup is going to be hard, almost certainly.
If you just said in general, give me your favorite, spiciest first round playoff matchup, Wolves or non-Wolves, it would be Thunder Lakers, because whoever wins that would be absolutely just king bleep in the NBA, like in terms of media coverage. And the other one would be absolutely just beaten up and just murdered the next morning by Stephen A. Smith. So give me like a 1-8, 2-7 Thunder Lakers. But yeah, kind of looking to like the Wolves are 23-8 at home. That's why I'm pretty confident in them grinding out wins against a handful of teams that are basically non-playoff teams, like the Wizards, the Rockets, the Raptors. They also, up until last night, had the best road record. I think Jim said that last week on Thursday. That now they're tied with the Pelicans, but they also far and away have the best conference record at 30-11. So to my cruise control analogy, going 87, they did, compared to last year, right, when they lost all those games to bad teams, for the most part, they did take care of business throughout the first 3 quarters of the season when, call a spade, it was pretty easy for them. Like, they didn't have a lot of adversity. Granted, they were winning games. They didn't have any drama, but other teams have had a lot of injuries. The Wolves just didn't. They have injuries now at the worst time, and they just got to battle through it. And again, I know we didn't really get to talk much about that Pacers game, but the Pacers game, the second end of a back-to-back against the Cavs when they played 5-on-8, even against the Lakers, they've showed a lot of heart, and I know heart doesn't get you wins, but it does get you something. And I think this team is not just going to be like, wow, we lost Karl. It's cooked. They're going to win more games than you think, and that's why I'm not super concerned about them falling out of the top 4.
And it's been like last night, Naz Reid, especially in the first half, Naz Reid was gangbusters. He knocks down 5 out of 10 threes. He played 42 minutes, 25 points. And of course he's put in this crazy spot now where, hey, you're starting and you're going to be guarding Anthony Davis for chunks of this game. It's just a tough spot. But more Naz Reid is a good thing for this team. But the 100%. Problem, and this is what we foreshadowed, the problem is, well, you're trying to make up for the depth lost by more Naz Reid, especially if you start Naz Reid out of necessity last night. Who's coming off the bench? What does that look like? Credit to TJ Warren and Luka Garza for holding it together. By the way, Jordan McLaughlin knocked down, 4 of 9 3-pointers, and I think leads the Timberwolves in 3-point make percentage this season.
Yeah, 42%.
Mike Conley's kind of come down the mountain. So you some guys are stepping up there, but it's not just Naz Reid replacing Cat. It's Naz Reid replacing Cat, which is actually like the Wolves can sustain that way. It's now who replaces Naz Reid in those bench minutes, the 23, 25 minutes you get from him. And
one interjection here about the Karl stuff and the Karl news of last week. When he goes down, and it's probably for a month, maybe, the hope is that he can return for the playoffs. It's like, yeah, okay, that sucks. Or this was the general consensus. That sucks, but big opportunity for Naz Reid. The problem is, like you just said, is that next man up mentality. Who is then next man up for Naz Reid? And I was thinking about this, and I do want to talk a couple minutes about officiating or just a take I have in general, but after they lose Karl, Naz has been cooking since then, and it's awesome because he deserves it, undrafted, to get paid. But the Wolves don't have another player that I would say, Phil, is like a favorite to score 20 points. Like every other player on their roster, including Rudy when he's healthy, is like plus money to score 20 points. And that's the biggest concern about losing Karl for a month or this summer if you decide to pivot off of him, is that this team can play defense with the best of them, with or without Karl. He is having his best defensive season. But when you take him out of the fold, you kind of start to look around and be like, this team doesn't have another consistent 20-point-a-game scorer in a league where almost anyone can get 20. So that's, like who is next man up? Nas has stepped up. He now has shown that, maybe he is just a 20-point-a-game guy, but it just sucks to not have. I mean, they basically have pivoted into a team that just shoots 53s a game. They're just going to try to have the math, again, back to math, the math beat you, and that's what they did against the Lakers, and that's how they stayed close for 3 quarters, but then when those threes don't go in, it's just one shot, one possession, and you're cooked.
This is where, I know what you've been saying about Jaden. Right now, he's a $2 million player, and he's giving you
terrible.
Way more than $2 million in value, but dude, he is a guy that I think at some point can and should be, especially if Cat's out, 20. Go get 18 points, man. Go get 20 points. He was 5 of 17 from the field, missed all of his 3-point shots in that game. At some point, and this goes to the salary conversation too, next year, going to need more than 5 of 17. Going to need more than the 9 points a game or whatever it is that he's averaging this season, 9 or 10 points a game. And this is a great chance for him, especially last night. Everyone's out. It's you, Nas. It's Anthony Edwards, Nas Reed, and you are the offense here. And he's got to, especially if there's going to be some more games where it's going to be thin. He's got to perform better offensively.
And I thought, he played 32 minutes last night, had 1 foul, and he was primarily always guarding LeBron.
Yeah.
So I thought, again, it's there's that improvement, right? There's that defense that's all defensive caliber. He's not getting into foul trouble and stuff. But I have nothing to say on the 0 for 5 threes. I mean, he got great looks. They're all just a little short. I don't know if there's a slight hitch in the mechanics lately or what, but he, I was complaining 2 weeks ago that, hey, he just needs more opportunities. He needs more food if he's going to be expected to eat. Well, he got a lot of food last night, and he just turned it down for the most part or spit it up. So he's going to have to be, step up. Nas Reed, when given the opportunity and more opportunities like shots and the ability to create on his own, he has flourished, and they need that from Jaden. Even though the defense has been awesome, he's, without Rudy, their best defender, but not a good game last night. I expect to see them kind of bounce back against the Clippers team that's probably the biggest game of the season so far for them is if they can hold off the Clippers on Tuesday in LA, you give yourself some more breathing room. But if the Clippers catch you, then all of a sudden you're looking at 2 games in Utah that's borderline must-win games.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do a couple things here after we shout out a couple of friends. We'll have a little bit of a Mike Conley discussion, and then we're going to give Kyle a blank canvas to talk about his favorite football team, the Vikings, on this day of NFL free agency tampering. So our friends at AG1 are trusted by top athletes all over the world, and they're trusted by me. AG1 is a simple and comprehensive foundational nutrition supplement for whole body health. I have personally used AG1 for about 7 years now. Essential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients to support daily performance and sustained energy. AG1 is a powerful, simple step you can take today for a better tomorrow. Here's one of the travel packs for the YouTube audience right here.
Delicious.
If you want to get the crate, they give you 30 of these. If you want the bucket with the scoop, just 1 scoop mixed with your water, either in the morning or sometime in the afternoon. I'm kind of an afternoon guy. I'll be traveling this week, so I'll definitely have my travel packs with me. So if you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/flagranthowls. That's drinkag1.com/flagranthowls. Also a shout out to our friends over at First Equity Mortgage. So personally, I had a great experience with them 7-8 years ago, and First Equity has helped 20 of my coworkers and friends over the years with either refis or new homes. And David, the front man of First Equity, is a 20-year Wolves and Lynx season ticket holder. So you probably see him roaming around Target Center in the coming weeks. If you get out there, you can get a great experience with First Equity, which was recognized now for the 15th year in a row as a top 1% loan originator in the country. You know you're getting a great experience with First Equity. That's femort.com, femort.com, or go to scorenorth.com, keyword David. So, all right, Mike Conley, man, we've seen this happen sometimes with point guards that get a little older. They're still spry at the beginning of the year, and then somewhere into the marathon of 82 regular season games and playoffs, they start to drop off. Do you think we're just seeing kind of a banged up, weary version of Conley that's going to snap out of it? Or do you think there's something more here? And I'll present some evidence. So 40 games into the season, the 40th game was a 15-point home blowout against Memphis, in which Mike Conley scored 17 points, dished out 10 assists, 4 rebounds, couple of steals, best game of the year for him, or one of his 2 or 3 best games of the year. The next night, or 2 nights later, I guess, against Oklahoma City, he shot 1 for 11, 1 for 9 from three-point range, only scored 3 points, 3 turnovers. It was followed up by his perhaps worst game of the year. And then he was inactive for 4 of the next 5 games. So since that 40-game mark, his scoring is down 2 points a game. His three-point percentage is down 10 percentage points. His field goal percentage is down 6 percentage points. And overall, he just has been a lesser player in these last 20 games. What's your Mike Conley panic meter right now?
It's not too high, but it's also above 0, mainly because there's one stat, and you just listed off some really important ones, but there's one stat to me that showed, yeah, you want Mike Conley out there because he's an adult, and yeah, you want Mike Conley out there because he's a floor general, and he gets guys in the right spot. He speaks French. He knows how to unlock Rudy. But let's not talk about October because there's only 3 games. But in November, he shot 46% from 3. And again, these are like a large sample size because Mike doesn't really miss games. He was playing as many as he could. So 46% in November, 49% from 3 in December. January down to 40. That's kind of when the offense cratered, and that's all we talked about that month. Then he was back up to 46% in February. In the month of March, he is shooting 19% from 3.
Yikes.
And just that stat alone, I mean, those, floor spacing, he's good in transition. Basically, anytime he shot the ball now, prior to March, he was basically shooting at a 50-50 coin flip, right? So, like, anytime you shot it, you're like, oh, that's probably going to go in, and if it's not, they'll get the rebound. Yeah. Well, now it's down to, 1 out of every 5 he's making, and that's killing them as well because, again, now without Karl, how many other guys on this, if they play rotations or lineups that have Kyle and Rudy in it, that's just 2 guys that can't shoot, like will never shoot. Nikhil can be, hot or cold. Obviously, Monty Morris gave you a little bit, but they just need Mike to hit multiple threes a game to keep this offense from being a bottom 5 offense. And 19%, I mean, he's had, I think, 3 games in March where he hasn't hit one. Yeah. And last night, again, he only played 29 minutes. He was 3 for 6 from the field. He didn't really hurt them. 6 assists, 0 turnovers. They are trying to limit his minutes. You can tell that's a real thing. It was going to be Monty Morris, probably playing half the game. Well, now that Monty's out with the hamstring, it's been a lot of Jordan McLaughlin. Jordan McLaughlin has come in and hit 3, so that's good. But I'm concerned. I'm not super concerned because it might just be a leg thing. I don't think he just all of a sudden fell off a cliff like, I don't know, like a older running back or something. I think he's worth the extension that they got him at, which is a 50% discount. But Finch loves to win games, Phil. He just loves to grind out wins, and that's why he's not giving Josh Minot or Leonard Miller or, back to our Tim Conley stuff all the time, which, like, has Tim Conley missed? And we're like, not really. The fact that Jordan McLaughlin is just getting these minutes and Wendell Moore's not, when you have all your players hurt, not a great sign for Wendell Moore.
No, it's not.
They need to preserve Mike, in my opinion, even if it's at the expense of winning games. Because if this is the version of Mike you're going to get on April 20th, you might be cooked already. So I don't really care what seed you have or who you play or what home court advantage you have or don't have. They need, November through February Mike Conley, because March Mike Conley probably is more bad than good.
I wonder if there's just a stretch where they can sit him for a while. So this week is actually pretty advantageous schedule-wise. You get a day off in LA, so you're not traveling.
Yep. They're there for the week, I think.
And then you play the Clippers tomorrow night, and then you're not playing again until Saturday. So it's actually very minimal travel this week. You're out West Coast, whatever, nice weather. And then again, you get this is like the easiest travel road trip of any team in the NBA. You're in LA for basically 5 or 6 days, and then you go to Utah where you're posted up for 72 hours, 2 games against Utah. So it's not like a 6-game road trip where you're bouncing around from city to city. So I think you can keep playing him here, but if he doesn't snap out of it, I'm probably looking to sit him for some like that. I'm looking at like the Pistons game in a couple of weeks. You're probably going to need him against. This is the thing, like back to back off of a travel day against the Nuggets at home. Do you sit him against the Nuggets? But it's the Nuggets, dude. You're trying to keep the Nuggets behind you in the Western Conference standings. But can you find like 3 or 4 games and just give him some rest time so he's as strong as he can be in the playoffs?
I know he wants to keep playing. Like that Portland game last week that we said on the pod on Tuesday, they don't win if he doesn't play. Yeah. I think they tried to get him to sit. And he was like, no, I want to try to get, my groove back or whatever. And he did get his groove back, and he played well at home against the Blazers. But yeah, I wouldn't even look at the opponent, Phil. I mean, that matters too, right? But I would just look at the days. Like I'm on ESPN's schedule thing. That Pistons game on March 27th is sandwiched between a Sunday game and a Friday game. So if he doesn't play in that, he gets like 4.5 full days off, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, I'm hopeful. I mean, Chris Finch has been far more, Tom Thibodeau than he has been, maybe like a Ryan Saunders in terms of just throwing guys out there. And true. if your body works, you're going to play. And that's part of the culture they've built. That's part of the reason they are close in all these games. But you do need to start thinking bigger picture and not trying to grind out wins. So I hope they give Mike some rest. I hope Monty's able to come back. I think Finch said over the weekend that it's day-to-day with that hamstring. I don't think that's true because I don't know of any hamstring injury that's ever day-to-day. But maybe he comes back against Utah and can be Monty Morris can start and give them spot starts. So Mike Conley's health is definitely up there on the list of things to be concerned about, probably below Karl and whether or not he returns. But they just got to find ways to get, February Mike, January Mike back, because March Mike is sounds cool, but it's not nearly as fun.
Yeah. So okay, so I don't know. My panic meter is a little bit high, but I think we've gone through enough reasonable worst case scenarios here. This makes me feel better today. It makes me feel better that we've done.
Overall, it sounds so negative. We have to paint a picture because it's gotten a lot more grim in the last week. But to see the heart they've showed, and I know heart is not something you can statistically analyze. We didn't even get to talk much about it because our schedule is we work during the week and we take weekends off. That Pacers game showed me a lot. Like that is when Ant is cooking. He even cooked against the Lakers last night. It doesn't matter if that's 5-on-5, 5-on-8. Officiating's been horrible. Okay, Rudy Gobert's comment fined historic amount of money. This team really likes each other and is galvanized, and I think they'll grind out some wins that you maybe didn't see coming, and they'll probably lose a couple games. You're like, I don't know how they lost that, but just get to the finish line and then just be a nobody believes in us Ewing theory, whatever team come mid-April.
Yeah. Okay, you get now the last few minutes of the show here.
You like that? You like
Noted that? Vikings fan Kyle Theige. Today is NFL free agency tampering day, so players actually starting in 15 minutes from right now. I know people are going to be listening to this well after this floodgate has opened. What do you think happens? What do you want to happen? Just give us like a Vikings take or 2 takes.
Well, more than anything, I just find it weird that in a sport, I love football, and I'm always sending you football takes and stuff. So just because I don't do a football pod doesn't mean I'm not as much, if not more, of a Vikings fan. But I do think it's funny that in a sport that the number one position, the most important position is quarterback. The number one free agent in this free agent class, and a loaded free agent class, is a 36-year-old dude coming off an Achilles injury. Mm-hmm. Whatever you're pro Kirk, I'm probably a little more pro Kirk than I am anti Kirk. It's just, I don't know, man. Achilles to me still, I know what some players have done, but Achilles injuries to me are kind of like the be-all, end-all. And to pin your hopes and dreams to anyone coming back from an Achilles injury and expecting them to be good right away, even Durant, like it just takes these guys time. And if you're the Vikings, how much time do you want? Now, the inverse of that is if you get a rookie quarterback, it's not like you're going to be flying off the charts. But I've always just wanted for my favorite team, a team that you always say, can they win one Super Bowl before we die, to just go that cool route, kind of what the Wolves did, right? Find a young, cheap rookie contract guy, a la an Anthony Edwards, I don't know if you saw the picture yesterday, but Ant has a new custom shoe color that's purple and gold because there's this fat little chubby Ant as a kid in a Vikings uniform. Maybe just let him play quarterback. But I've always wanted to see the rookie contract thing like the Seahawks did back in the day, and then just build up on defense, build up with skill position guys. So for me, we'll find out here in about an hour, or by the time you listen to this. I appreciate Kirk Cousins. I hope he enjoys Dirty South, ATL. But I'm excited for a rookie quarterback and just spending all that money on a other guys on the defensive side, on the offensive side, in the trenches, as they say, and running it a new version of the Minnesota Vikings moving forward, not the same 1-year plan. Let's have a 5-year plan.
Boy, I was hoping that by the end of your opinion there that we would have news dropping that Kirk back to the Vikings, 3 years, fully guaranteed, $100 billion.
He just bought the Timberwolves too, like Alex and Mark sold it to him.
Oh man, and he's moving the Timberwolves to Vegas. Oh my God, it's crazy. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for making Flagrant Howls one of the usually 50 most popular basketball podcasts in America. You can always help us grow the show by giving us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and click the like button and the subscribe button on the SKOR North YouTube channel. All right, Kyle. I think I'm gonna be traveling this week.
Yep.
And doing some podcasts from my hotel room. I don't think it's gonna work out on Thursday for me to connect with you and Jim. So it's gonna be you and Jim, maybe even doing the random Wolf of the Week against each other.
Ooh, okay.
With Ross. And
we'll
then
hold it down for you.
We'll mix in another episode or two of Flagrant Howls this week as well. So he's Kyle.
Hang in there, fans. Just one tough week. They're gonna finish in the top 4. Let's all calm down.
We just did the math. I don't know what more you want from us.
They'll be
today.
fine.
Yeah.
Flagrant
So this is a Timberwolves lifestyle and therapy podcast.